Hi, I'm Oliver, age 24.
And I'm Malford.
And this is the Worlds Adrift Show.
This week we've got a special episode for you guys. We sat down with Henrique to have a chat with him about what's coming up for the game.
We spoke about when the game will be released.
We spoke about playtests and what's coming up for them.
And we also spoke about a new way that you can get involved with the creation of the game.
Over to you, Malford. Hey, Henrique.
Hello, Matt.
So for the benefit of everyone at home who hasn't heard too much about Worlds Adrift so far, would you be able to give us a quick rundown of kind of what the game's about?
Yeah, I think the best way to define it is a massive multiplayer sandbox game, right? It's one of the first games that you can do whatever you want with your own objectives, but alongside thousands of people at the same time. That is what it brings in its core to the table. And then there's lots of other stuff, like the fact that everything that happens in the world is permanent, which is persistent. So if you chop down a tree, that tree is chopped down forever, it doesn't pop back up. Or if you kill a creature, that creature bodies will be there, left there until someone comes along and drag that creature somewhere else. Or if your ship gets hit by a cannonball and one of its panels fall to the floor, it will stay there forever. So all these elements are very new to the genre of online games, and it's something that they're very keen to see how it's going to pan out.
So how's the game changed since the original prototype?
The original prototype was conceived during our largest game jam ever. It was a week of jamming. It started with ideas jam, and then we trailed off with 5 days of work on 5 prototypes, if I remember well. And one of them was what we call Travelers at the time, which became Worlds Adrift. The whole idea of that particular game was, you know, when you craft something on a survival game or whatever, and all of a sudden you have invested so much time into crafting that thing, and that thing is rooted to the ground, and then you stop exploring the rest of the world because you build that thing where you live, and you don't want to give that away.
Sure.
So one of the concepts we tried to work around was you could take your house with you and your friends. So it was a cart that you dragged around, and that's what we call it, Travelers.
Yeah.
But then Luke had a much better idea. Instead of being a cart, it's a flying ship. And that led to floating islands in the sky, and you see where this is going, right? So the very first prototype that we ended that week with, there was a lot of the features that are at the center of Worlds Adrift, such as the grappling hook or the flying ships and all that. We didn't have crafting at the time because it's a jam, but what Worlds Adrift became ever since is a much more advanced version of that core idea.
Yeah.
So everything that we set ourselves to do that, we took completely wide range with Worlds Adrift. Each one of the features, say AI or crafting or combat or physics, everything is physical. Each one of those avenues became a project on its own right, and is massive in terms of how it affects the game.
Yeah.
This is what Worlds Adrift is. It's a mega version of that first idea.
How would you describe your role within the Worlds Adrift team?
My role is a little bit undefined. It's more to do with helping things happen. Anytime Herb or anyone in the team has a problem, I'm there to help and coach and get the problem out of the way as fast as I can. But one of the things I try to do personally is to keep the original vision true. Because it's so easy for you to make a compromise here or make a change there, and all of a sudden that compromise and that change are multiplying themselves into something completely different in the end that you have originally envisioned. So I like to remind people of why we're doing this, what do we set ourselves to do early on. So when decisions are made, sometimes in the wrong direction, we are able to steer them back to that original core, that vision.
So how do you think Worlds Adrift compares as a project to the previous titles that Boss has made?
That's a good question. A lot of people ask, why are we working on something this big online when we are known for Surgeon Simulator and I Am Bread, or single player premium games and so on, right? So if you think about it, both I Am Bread and Surgeon Simulator are about emergent gameplay, meaning that no 2 surgeries or 2 gameplay sessions are the same, right? If you go into surgery with Bob to do a heart transplant, the outcome will be completely different from mine. You're going to screw it up in a different way that I will, you will win in a different way that I do, and this is why the game is so popular, say, on YouTube, because you can make a video that's completely different from mine, and somebody else can watch both of them, it's fine. That's what we call emergent gameplay, which is something that is not scripted, you don't know what's going to pan out. This, in a nutshell, is what Worlds Adrift is. It's all about emergent gameplay. We create these systems integrated with AI, physics, persistency, etc., to allow players to explore and do whatever the hell they want on their own terms. freedom is the key word for Worlds Adrift, right? And that is a bigger version of what we did to a certain extent in Surgeon and in Bread.
Yeah.
The other side of it, which is an online multiplayer game, not a lot of people know this, but our very first game was the first real-time multiplayer game on Facebook. It was Monster Mind, which you will build a city, then you will grow B-movie monsters to launch against your friend's city, and with the money you made by rampaging their city, you would invest in protecting your city better against their monsters and so on. So we have a lot of experience with server-side, online, multiplayer, from those times. So you put the two things together and hey, we're doing the logical thing that we should be doing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying everything has gone according to plan, but it makes sense if you look from that angle.
Yeah. So what do you think has been the most challenging aspect of the project so far?
The most challenging aspect is the amount of moving parts we have in just one game. Because typically when you work on a game, you have this very defined set of features that you want to develop, and they kind of fit together in a very logical way. I do this first, I do that. You would do the character movement before you have character controls and all that, right? Here we have things that they live on their own right. And because of the complexity of each one of them, when you try to integrate them together, sometimes things don't go as well as we hoped they would.
Yeah.
Give a clear example. Now, we have physics, so everything is physical. If I push a piece of a log, it will roll down, and if it hits you, it's going to kill you. Or I can use that as a pendulum to smash someone in the face, or I can use that as ballast for a ship. Doesn't matter, it's a physical object, right? That's a system on its own right. Then we have creatures, which also have a system on their own right because they have AI, right? They reproduce, they mate, they seek food, they feel hunger, so they migrate, they get annoyed by the sound of the engines of the ships. So that's all a simulated AI happening there.
Yeah.
But they also have to be physical. So when you bring those two things together, very strange things happen.
Yeah.
Like a beetle humping a log. See what I mean? It's unpredictable things that start to happen, and you have to nail them. And the more moving parts you have, the more complex it is to manage and to make sure that everything comes together nicely. This is where we're spending most of our time these days, is trying to make all the moving parts fit together.
Yeah. So when are we planning to have our next playtest?
Good question. We had 3 playtests so far, right? We had the very first one, just validating network, etc., and people have a lot of fun with it. The second one was probably the best one, where people all the players actually were able to build ships and explore the universe. They did battles. It was cool.
Yeah.
The third one was supposed to be more bigger and better, and it failed miserably because we found a terrible bug on our network layer, and it didn't go as well as planned. But hey, that's what alpha tests are for, right? You want those things to go wrong during alphas, not when you're live.
No.
So what we have to do now is that we are about to fix that problem and then run it again.
Okay.
And as soon as we fix the problem, which is soon, we will run the same test, and then the test should be increasing frequency, very small space between them, up to a point that it's just one live test forever, and we hotfix it until we hotfix a live game when everybody's playing all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
And then is the time where we decided to open up to more people.
So what's the next step for the game? Where are we headed next?
We have a backlog of features that we're working through. The question is how many of those features we want to have as a minimum to launch, right? Because we have features that we could develop for another 2-3 years easily, but we don't want to work on a game for that long before people can play and give us feedback, right? So the main features that we're putting next, and hopefully that will be on Alpha 4, which is the 4th test. We'll do Alpha 3 again, so it's 3.5. On Alpha 4, we will likely to have the creatures in. We're likely to have weather, which is the storm walls, where you have to cross them to reach other areas of the game with more interesting things to discover.
So do we have a release date for the game when it's going to be out to the general public?
We do a tentative one, and we're always working around it based on the feedback that we get from the alpha tests, right? The way that we're going to do is that as soon as we get the core features in and we're happy with the state that they are in, we're going to release. And we are talking about a few months. We're not talking about next year or anything like that, right? That our objective to get is out soon. Then we will get, it's a limited launch. We'll get around 10,000 people or so in every month to make sure that we can scale properly, right? Well, the last thing we want to do is big online launch and the servers fall flat on their back, people cannot log in. It's just no, we rather control how many people can get in until we get a good hang of everything's working fine. And then open the floodgates for everybody who wants to enjoy the game. But as I said, is a matter of very little time, I hope, until we fix these things and implement the last features and we can get the first version of the game out. Now, that first version of the game will literally be that, is a first version. As I said, we have a roadmap of thousands of features that we want to put into the game as time goes by, but when the players start to interact with the game, we'll be much better informed about which features we should bring in first, what are the most relevant, what are the ones that impact the gameplay in the most positive way, right? Otherwise, we're making this judgment based just on our gut feeling and a little bit blind. That's usually not the best way to do this.
Have you found working in open development, how are you managing that?
You mean in contact with the players all the time, in the forums, etc. Is a blessing, it's really cool. Sometimes we get people who are a little bit too anxious because they see a picture of a model done and they say, it's in the game. It's not. You have to rig, animate, you have to develop, code it in, then bug test, and bug fix, all that. So it's a long process between shiny, working. But other than that, we get so much precious feedback and we have avoided so many obvious mistakes thanks to the people's feedback. A clear example I gave before is that our very first iteration of resource collection was terrible, was the most dull thing in the face of the earth, and people were very quick to point that out to us. And then we did it different, and now it's much better. Still, we can do it even better. But thank you for the players who pointing out that we got something wrong here and there, and we can act on that. So I would never do game development in a closed way ever again. I think it's much better the way we're doing it now.
So what's the next kind of big thing that players are going to be able to get involved with the game?
We are about to launch a tool that enables the players to create content for the game. And that is not mod. It's not something that you might elect to play, download and experience yourself. No, it's something that the players will be able to craft and will be brought back into the game, integrated into the main game for everybody else to experience. We finished that tool and we are testing it now and we are pushing it live in a matter of weeks for the players to, and it will be the first time, as far as I can tell, that a game does something like that. Is to get the fans and the creators and the community to help build part of the game world that everybody will experience even before the game is launched. So I'm really, really excited to see that out and see what people are going to do with it.
Thank you very much, Henrique. It's been a good conversation.
Likewise, yes. So, thank you very much.
So handshake, why not?
Handshake, why not?
Well, that's the end of this episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe for more.
And also check out the forum and subreddit for all the latest news from the game and community.
Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.